This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. CTV 2 nights ago aired this special with Prince Harry going over the Invictus games. And in this interview, there were a couple things that caught my attention that I want to share with you and get your opinion on.
You said a couple of minutes ago there's still stuff that you still carry, and I'm just wondering how you have evolved personally in your time with the games.
So I want us to keep in the front of our heads what this interviewer is asking Harry. He's asking Harry how he is a person. This question is all about Harry. Now is the time for him to talk about himself, how he has evolved as a result of being a part of Invictus. Listen to Harry's response. Tell me if you find that this doesn't make any kind of sense to you.
And I'm just wondering how you have evolved personally in your time with the games. What sort of changes have you noticed in yourself?
Look, being around this community is my fix. When you're around these people and you hear other people's stories and you can make that connection with your own experience, there's just a lot of weight that gets taken off your shoulders. Because a lot of these individuals feel or have felt very lonely.
Now, Harry strikes me as the kind of person of where he feeds off of other people's misery. Like, the thing that irritates me here is him saying, like, when you hear of other people's stories and you can make that connection. Well, what kind of connection are you making, Harry? You were in a bunker protected by people. Unlike many who have endured the harrowing loss of limbs, abduction, or relentless torture, Harry has never found himself in circumstances that would genuinely threaten his safety or leave him deeply traumatized. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. Nor did he return home bearing the burden of having a disability, struggling to secure employment to sustain a family. Thus, when he remarks that hearing so much horrific tales feels like a burden lifted, it suggests an unsettling notion to me that he derives a kind of pleasure from the suffering of others, precisely because he has never experienced anything remotely akin to the pain that these veterans have felt. Furthermore, his cavalier attitude, viewing human beings as mere pawns on a chessboard, don't forget, this is a perspective he shamelessly flaunted in his book To Provoke Shock. This reveals to me a profound disconnect from the gravity of such experiences. This raises a strong question and serious one. What sort of personal evolution does this represent for him? Does it render him a better, more empathetic individual? I don't think so.
Right, because I think over the course of our service, you're sort of led to believe that the problems that you have encountered or the issues that you are carrying are somewhat unique to you within that service. And when you come to the games, you suddenly realize that actually that's not the case at all. So, again, in answer to your question, I get so much out of hearing their stories, and that may sound weird, but I get my own sort of cure and confidence from them, knowing that what we're doing is working, being able to, I guess, serve part of my purpose.
But then again, Harry, what is your purpose? You're just being the mascot and the face for Invictus games. What have you given to help these people aside from showing up to all these events and making it all about yourself, even though you claim that it's not about yourself, while then collecting a check?
And being able to use the position, the platform, the spotlight in giving these guys, all the attention and the opportunity.
And that was the end of his answer to this question. Did he explain how he's evolved as a person? No. Did Harry grow? Did Harry say that I can, separate my emotions or I can deal with certain things because I have a network of people that I can call? No, he completely deflected this answer, threw it back onto these veterans or contestants, and then proceeded to make it sound like he is the Messiah and that he feels good about himself, that he's able to use his platform and spotlight to showcase his work here. And the stories that he hears from these veterans, it takes a weight off of his shoulders because I'm guessing it makes him feel better that his situation is not as bad as some of these others. It truly is astounding to see this guy think that all he needs to do is just show up and the world is better for it. Like, get out of here, Harry. Really, get out of here with this. But anyway, moving on to this next question.
Do you actively consume, read, watch the news, or is that something you feel you need to separate yourself from?
Now, remember, Harry said that he's not on social media and that he has people looking at the media for him and bringing to his attention, when needed, things that come up.
Well, first of all, in the Invictus Games transcends politics, right? I think we all appreciate that and understand that.
Really, Harry? You truly believe that? Well, then how come you and that Canadian politician in the opening ceremonies decided to take those cheap shots at the new administration here in the United States? And don't think people haven't recognized the purposeful focus on the Ukraine team.
Do you actively consume, read, watch the news, or is that something you feel you need to separate yourself from?
I think it's hard to stay away from everything that's going on, especially if you're on social media for so many people.
And here Harry is now contradicting himself. He's essentially telling everyone that he is looking at the media, even though he quickly catches himself and tries to sort of deflect and backtrack by saying, for so many people. Yes, so many people includes Harry and Meghan. And right after that, Harry quickly gets off the topic and starts to focus on Team Ukraine. What he says here raises a huge red flag.
The very things that are happening right there, you're confronted with. But I said this back in Dusseldorf when the Ukrainian team jumped on a coach and traveled for days straight from a war zone, some of them from the front line, to come and compete in the Invictus Games, to be able to draw that energy and that strength from their own team, but also every single other nation that was there to support them. I don't know if you saw the footage. When that team came into the opening ceremony, the whole place stood up. So that energy that they were then given, I sort of reminded everybody to learn myself, they're going back. But that was the first time that we've had a competing nation, come from a war zone, from the front line, compete, and then go back.
That we've had a competing nation, come from a war zone, from the front line, compete, and then go back.
And I can't even wrap my head around that, other than to know that we did the best that we could, collectively, every single one of us, to lift them up and give them the strength and the energy to go back and defend their country.
Am I the only one that didn't get the memo that Invictus Games is now taking in people who are currently serving in the military? Why are they taking people out of a war zone to go compete in these games and then to send them back? To me, I find this so foreign and bizarre. Like, I thought these games were set up originally to help veterans as well as disabled ones find purpose because of the trauma that they've experienced. Why are they pulling people who are currently in active duty on the front lines to go compete in these games, especially since Zelensky has been reporting that they've been running out of soldiers? So what is Harry doing, pulling out people from the front line to go compete in the Meghan and Harry show?
Desertion is a massive problem in the Ukrainian army. We all know the armed forces of Ukraine are suffering from a great shortage of manpower, especially their infantry units sitting on the contact line. For sure, casualties is one reason, but there's something else that is more taboo. Ukrainian news outlet Union interviewed a military officer. He assessed that at least 100,000 Ukrainian military personnel have abandoned their combat positions.
Well, if you need to find out where they are, perhaps maybe you should go check Invictus Games, because apparently they just left off the line, even though desperately needed for this war because it's so serious, to go have some fun.
AKA they deserted, and they're nowhere to be found. The officer stated it's nearly the equivalent of 20 brigades that just vanished.
Now, I have voiced my concern on this previously, and I find myself compelled to reiterate it. Ever since I witnessed the promotional material for Heart of Invictus, because that's exactly what it was, a production helmed by a director previously involved in crafting war propaganda for the White Helmets, I have grown increasingly skeptical of the motives at play here. It appears to me that Prince Harry's efforts are not merely altruistic, but are instead directed towards perpetuating the machinery of war, sustaining a vast operation that facilitates significant financial malfeasance. This observation raises several troubling questions for me. First, how can active soldiers currently engaged in combat and free of disabilities be pitted in competition against disabled veterans in an adaptive sports event such as the Invictus Games? Make it make sense, folks. The incongruity of this arrangement is striking. Second, how is it feasible for frontline personnel to be granted a 2-week reprieve from their duties, particularly at a time when Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has emphasized a dire shortage of troops as the conflict intensifies? And finally, perhaps the most disconcerting is how can one verify the authenticity of the participants? Are they truly soldiers, or might they be actors in a carefully orchestrated spectacle designed to bolster propaganda efforts and enhance the event's optics? We cannot ignore the fact that the Invictus Games has now become a multi-million-dollar money-making operation. The Invictus Games Foundation has figured out a model where they are using government money in order to subsidize these games. I do believe that Canada gave the games, I think, over $30 million to put on this show. So you got to ask this question: how much money ended up in the pockets of Harry and Meghan and all those sitting on the board of directors? I mean, they're not doing this for free, obviously. And it's not just Canada who's funding this. The United States taxpayer is also funding this through Fisher House, who gave the Invictus Games $1.3 million of taxpayer money to apply to the Harry and Meghan show. Fisher House is another one of those organizations that should be fully audited, because during the Biden regime, they were given $45 million. And when you go back and you look at their IRS tax forms, specifically in years 2020 and 2021, there is no such reporting of the transaction or the amount of money that the government, the federal government, had given this foundation. So the big question is where is that money? It's kind of ridiculous that taxpayer money is paying $480,000 for them to manage their website, as well as giving $500,000 or over $500,000 to the CEO of running this foundation. To me, it sounds like a racket. And then when you look at the amount of money that's actually given to the veterans to help them, it's minuscule compared to the excessive costs of running this operation. I'm afraid that the abuse is everywhere, because it's not just Meghan and Harry that have been doing this. Meghan and Harry learned from the best, and that's how Archwell Fugazi Public Charity got set up. I do think we need to investigate the Ukraine team, because it's odd to me that the Ukraine team is the only team, as Harry said, that currently is getting off the battlefield to go play some games and then going back to the battlefield. Why is that? Something's really fishy here. With all that money Zelensky has said that he never received or has lost, the billions, you got to wonder if Ukraine team gave money to the Invictus Games Foundation, courtesy of the U.S. taxpayer, because I feel like we pay for everything. So who knows? Invictus Games Foundation and their little affiliates could be little laundromats washing all of our money, and that's why they want this war to continue. But that's a conversation for another day. Let's close off this video with this conversation Harry has with this interviewer talking about parenting. You tell me if this sounds like Harry is a dedicated dad and really understands children.
How do you have kids?
So my wife and I are actually expecting in a few weeks.
Okay.
Our first child.
Okay.
So you guys are further ahead than we are. What's the journey to parenthood like?
It's amazing.
Like, is it just me, or do you find Harry's reaction to the interviewer telling him that he's about to have his first child? And you can see how excited this interviewer is. Like, I don't know, I think a more normal response would have been like, oh, congratulations. Or, oh, really? What are you having? A boy or a girl? Do you know? All Harry says about parenting is it's amazing. Like, from the very beginning, when they introduce this doll to the world, here's what Harry said.
I haven't been at many births. This is definitely my first birth. But it was amazing, absolutely incredible. And as I said, I'm so incredibly proud of my wife.
And how are you finding parenting generally? Is it still a special moment?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, parenting is amazing.
And then he proceeds to answer the question of what the journey is like to parenthood, and Harry gives this really generic response. It's amazing. But then proceeds to not say why and makes these comments.
I think 1 or 2 kids is probably enough. I definitely think that. I know some people got 5. I just say, well, that's your own fault.
But what's so amazing about the journey to parenthood? The guy is literally looking to Harry for some kind of advice or to give some kind of advice because he's going to be a brand new father. Like, it's a very bizarre interaction.
Having kids is amazing, but it's a journey. Every single day, every single week they just grow and they change.
I feel like this was his subconscious talking because he's not there every single day and he's not there every single week. Like, you don't need to say that. That's almost implied as a parent. When you have 2 young kids, you have to be there. They just grow and they change. Like, what did you expect, Harry?
And I love the questions that they ask, and the experiences and the challenges they give you. It's great.
Am I being too critical here, or do you find this interaction a bit odd? I feel like the interviewer was trying to connect with Harry and to talk about something that he might have been excited to talk about, but his response was very generic. And I think the interviewer was looking for a little advice since he's about to become a new father. And you can see from the interviewer's expression that he is really excited about welcoming a brand new life into this world. And here Harry is it's amazing. It's great. It's like he's talking about a chocolate ice cream that he just tasted. Like, it really doesn't give me the warm and fuzzy that he's that involved with those invisible children, which is really sad, especially when you see him interacting and hanging out with the children at Invictus games. And if he does indeed have these 2 children at home, you know, it's got to be quite sad for them, especially if they're watching from California to see daddy playing with other children and not them. How long do you think Harry and Meghan are going to be able to keep this facade going? At this point, it's getting beyond ridiculous. Like, they're not fooling anyone. But love to know your thoughts on this. Some interesting things found today in this interview that happened, I think, on Friday. So, let me know your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
Such a fraud.